Next, your trunks. Now we saved this trunk. It is going to be white. Remember, you try to save your whites in watercolor from the beginning. So I'm going to peel my tape off now. Now the longer this tape sits on your tree, the more it will rip the paper. So it's been on here for quite a long time. So my paper is kind of ripping, and that's okay. You know, kind of go with the flow. So if this is my aspen tree, I might want to insert a little highlight and a shadow. Okay, now my highlight's kind of already done, right? It's white. So I'm going to mix up a brownish gray. Now if I want to get a black or a gray, I want to mix black, which is brown and blue. And then water it down to get your gray. And then I could come in and put in a shadow on one side of the tree. Don't do the whole tree, because remember we tried to save the white by taping it, so we don't want to get rid of the white. And this will also suggest maybe the sun is coming from the left, give it kind of a light source. So you could shadow it a little bit with paint. I personally like to do it with my pencil to give more detail. Now, one thing you can do with this pencil is actually physically dip it in your water. Let it soak, because that pencil lead will get really soft, just like the paint will. And then you can use it to draw your details. So maybe I want to put some little line marks on it, because it's an aspen tree. Give it a great big old like knot from where a branch fell off. And treat it like a drawing. Give it some detail, some texture. Now I'm using blue because it's cooler down here in the shadow. I could come in and add some warmer colors. Maybe I want to put some yellow on the highlight side with my watercolor pencil. Perhaps I want to put some orange. Okay, soak my pencil in the water so it's wet. One thing is, if you're doing something that's a white object, you kind of want to use all of your colors so it doesn't look blue or it doesn't look yellow or orange. If you use all of your colors when shading, it'll look more white. So I'm going to come in here and add some purple in my shadow because purple's cool. Okay, so play with it. Kind of experiment and have fun. Now, if you have a tree that's not white, like an aspen tree, and you want to do a darker one, that's an option too. You just want to mix up really thick paint. So I'm mixing up my blue and my brown because I want my tree to look like a dark brown. So I'm adding blue to the brown in order to get it to be darker. And I'm really working the paint into my palette. Picking it up, mixing it in, picking it up, mixing it in. So it's really thick. I don't want it to be light. And then I'm trying to paint it as quick as I can. Don't lollygag here, because this technique is scratching. So once I have my paint down, it's nice and thick. You can use your fingernail, you can use the back of your brush, and you can try to scratch out some of the paint. The trick is the paint has to be not too wet and not too dry. So right now my paint's a little bit too wet, so I'm going to wait a little bit and keep trying to scratch it because I want to try to get like a barky texture. Sometimes it works to use your fingernail if you have a little bit of a fingernail. To create lines. So I'm kind of working it as it's drying. There we go. And I'm just removing one line of paint at a time. This technique is nice because it'll give you a brighter highlight and a darker shadow, which makes contrast in the front. which is something we want to achieve for our atmospheric perspective. So you can kind of see what that looks like. All right, so that's a nice method to use for trees that are up close. Now, if you didn't save your whites, and you're like, I still want to have a tree up front, you can just make sure you use a darker tree so it covers up everything behind it. So I could insert another tree trunk right here next to it if I forgot to add something in. And as long as I use a darker color, it will cover whatever I painted behind it. Okay, so I could make that into a third tree if I wanted to. Okay, think about more detail as you move forward. So I'm working with my trunks, possibly branches, maybe even some leaves on the tree. If you're doing leaves and they're up close, again, you want them to be thick so they cover up everything behind it. So I could possibly mix some of my greens. And tap, refuel my brush. Tap, refuel my brush. You have to go back and refuel quite a bit. Okay, so don't be afraid to really load that brush up. Maybe some of the leaves come in front of the tree because of that overlapping law. Okay, if I look at the base of the tree, in fact, my grass, if this is sitting on the grass, might come in front of the tree as well. Maybe I need some grass blades overlapping that trunk in the front. Maybe texture the grass a little bit. Pull it across. Okay, so the detail can take a little bit longer just because you're taking time, establishing little lines, waiting for things to dry. So this is what we're working on this week. Okay, so give it a try in your own painting and see if you can make something happen. If it's taking, or if it's not working very well, and you need to add another layer after it dries, like a second layer of detail, you certainly could do that as you're going. Okay, so keep layering it. Let it dry, layer it again, let it dry, later again. Add bright highlights and shadows here in the front to bring it forward. And you will have a beautiful little painting. So give it a try and good luck. Bye.